Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast. Darren Mitchell here on what is a very chilly but very nice spring morning here in Australia. Have the absolute pleasure of speaking to a man who's known as the Sales Dojo, Mr. Christian Jack, coming in all the way from Houston, Texas. How are you, my friend?
I am fantastic. I get to talk to the future here today. It's Friday afternoon for me. It's
You
great. It's
do,
great to
you
meet you,
do. And
Darren.
mate, just before we were pressing record, we were just talking about how you've got a great setup and you're in one of your three offices at your home. And it's
Yeah,
a very, very impressive setup with the Sales Dojo on the wall behind you. Nice little green ensemble in terms of the lighting setup. So is that
man.
very specific?
I mean, the sales dojo color is green, but it's mostly just to make up for my lack of sales skills so that I look really good. And so I don't have to actually be very good at sales. That's the
So in other words, it's if your environment looks great, then
you can
that'll
be
amp
shit
your
at
credibility
sales.
before you open your mouth.
100%.
Excellent, mate. I've got to actually read this introduction because it's very impressive. Um, Master of Influence. Persuasion and sales with a track record of scaling businesses to multiple eight figures. A sales expert coaching hundreds of professionals on mastering key skills such as communication, body language, and leadership. And if you want anything you currently don't have in your life, Christian is the man to teach you how to get it. Now, we're going to start with, mate, where did it all start for you? I mean, you've done extraordinary stuff and respectfully, you're quite young still, and love to know what's the background that's led you to do what you do today and create the Sales Dojo.
Well, I won't wax too eloquently on this, but maybe there's somebody listening that was in the spot where I was. I was stuck is where all of this started. I felt completely stuck. I was working a 9 to 5 as a choir teacher. Nonetheless, I got my college degree in music and vocal performance, so I can sing opera like you probably haven't heard in a while.
Wow.
But the main job that is available to those people when they graduate college is either like going on tour with an opera company, which
Yep.
it's very selective, very hard to get into. It's a performance sport. And so I didn't really see that for myself because I had just gotten married. And so the main job that's available is a choir teacher at like a high school. And so I was a high school choir teacher to start. But I've always been a very entrepreneurial person, right? Much like I'm sure you are, Darren, or anybody who's listening to this, you probably have that little itch to do your own thing or
Mm.
build something of your own or like just go out and grab life by the horns. And being that way while also working as a teacher, that just was like that was a recipe for disaster because I had to be at the school at a certain time in the morning. I
Yeah.
had to stay at school until a certain time in the afternoon. I had to teach a certain curriculum, uh,
Yes.
and I had no financial freedom. I was never going to make any more than I was at that time. I had no time freedom to be able to say when I wanted to work, when I didn't want to work, et cetera. And I had no location freedom anywhere that I ever wanted to live in my life. I had to have a school nearby that not only was looking for me to work as a teacher with them, but also didn't have one already there. And
Yeah.
like, that's one of those positions that people stay in for their life for 20 years, 30 years. So it's very rare. But anyway,
Wow.
that's really what started it all is I just felt completely stuck. And I knew at some points I wanted to run a business
Hmm.
because I saw that the freest people in the world ran a business. And so, me being my naive little 22-year-old self, I guess, yeah, 22-year-old self, I was like, well, all right, I'll start a business. And I very quickly realized I sucked. I didn't know anything about business. I had run like a car washing or situation when I was a kid. I'd sold in a lemonade stand. I had like
Yep.
fundraised, but never a real business. So very quickly, I realized, okay, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought. But in the process as well, I got to take a hard look at, what should I learn first in order to do really well at business? And almost every single business owner that I listened to podcasts of or, saw videos of them talking about it, they all said the same exact thing. He said, get really good at sales.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I found the secret. I'm going to get really good at sales. So then I got into a sales role to start. I actually got really lucky and got into a closing role as my first role. I didn't have to go through being an SDR or a BDR or cold
Mm.
calling or anything like that at first. Um, and yeah, I mean, the rest was history after that. I really just fell in love with it. And we can go through the rest, but that's really where it all started.
So what was it about? What was it about sales, and particularly as a closing role, that attracted you? Because there are a lot of people that I mean, everybody's in sales. Let's just
Yeah,
be frank about that, right? But not everybody is great at sales.
very true.
And so, what was it that you found within yourself? And I'd love to know, was there anything that you'd learnt through becoming a choir teacher and having that degree in music that
Mm,
helped you, I guess, build better relationships, understand people
yeah.
better, etc., that led you to where you are now?
Fantastic question. Two questions. So I'll start with the first one. Um, I think that what really led me to sales, aside from, successful business people saying learn sales, what really sold me on it was the idea that sales is a meta skill. It's one of those things that, I mean, if you're in sales, you've probably heard this 1,000 times. So it's going to be nothing new. But sales is everything. Everything is sales. When
Mm,
you are, trying to get your kids to eat broccoli, sales. When you're trying to get a promotion at work, sales. When you are at the baggage claim, right, at an airport or at security, and they're like, "Oh, your bag is 10 pounds overweight." Sales, right? I can't tell you how many free things I've gotten because of sales since I've learned. It's been fantastic. So that was one thing. I just realized that it was a meta skill. And really, this was back, shortly after COVID. And a lot of music teachers had actually gotten laid off because they're considered non-essential workers.
mm,
And I was a music teacher, and my wife was a music teacher. And so I was thinking at that point, I was like, man, if something happens, both of us are going to be out of a job. And both of us have been doing music our whole lives. We haven't really learned other marketable or really like useful skills, right? Like I
yeah.
can play the pants off of anybody around me with a piano or sing, but like what's that going to do if COVID happens or if World War III happens or like whatever. I was thinking of those things in my mind. And so sales is a total meta skill, but then also it's so simple and it's so
Mm,
easy. I don't know if anybody's ever who's listening to this has ever thought of this, but sales is literally just talking to somebody. Like, what other job in the world can you just do something so simple? Like, you already talk to people day to day. Why not just learn to make money from it?
mm,
But then also, you don't have to create a product. You don't have to market it. You don't have to deal with fulfillment. You don't have to deal with like customers on the back end. You don't have to deal with systems and structures and all this stuff that goes into like running a business. But you can still make business owner money, have business owner level freedom. And when I thought through all of that, that's when I was sold. I was like, all right, man, pun intended, I was sold, right? So that's really what made that transition for me in my head with sales. Now, the second question that you asked about how did being a teacher, being a choir teacher actually help me in sales? The biggest thing that comes to mind is learning to capture focus
mhm.
when you're a choir teacher, right? When I think back to the classes that I was teaching, I would have 45 to 50 uh, teenage girls in the room, all trying to chat to each other, all on their phones, like etc. And in order to teach anything, you have to capture focus,
Yeah.
and we need to inspire people to like want to learn something instead of taking the easy road,
Mm.
or splitting up groups and delegating responsibility and leadership to one of the kids as well,
Yep.
instilling that in them to want to rise up and not just be like everybody else. All those things I think were early benefits of being a teacher that helped me in sales. But then there were also some things that I once I started learning sales, I realized had also helped me back. So I think everything has a pro and con, but I'm immensely grateful for the pros for sure. And the cons
Love it.
became learning experiences. So
Well, it's
also,
it's brilliant. And I mean, a few things you mentioned there, and as you were talking, I'm thinking you're so right. It's very rare you have somebody that wakes up one day and says, "Yeah, I think I'll get into sales," or a person going through high school saying, "I want to be a professional salesperson because it has
yeah,
such an ethical ring to it." But from a selling point of view, it has a really low, and I don't want to sound disrespectful to the sales profession because it's one of the most lucrative and most ethical professions on the planet.
yeah,
But there's a low barrier to entry. So you don't need
for sure.
necessarily a degree. Well, they're starting to teach sales in a lot of MBA programs, but
Yeah,
um, you don't have to be an expert. So here's the thing, and no disrespect to your background, you can go from teaching teenage girls, 40 or 50 of them that try and grab their attention, to now
yep,
speaking to sales professionals or businesses to help them
yeah,
become more ethical in what they do.
exactly.
And you don't have to go through 4 years of
Isn't
college
that
degrees.
crazy?
It's nuts.
It's wild.
And you can get paid to do it.
A lot of money to do it too. Yep,
So you went through there's a number of roles you've had over the journey.
yep.
I'd love to know, having done all of that, you've now created Sales Dojo and you now
hmm
work with sales professionals. And you were saying before we press record, typically don't work with organizations per se, but targeting the sales professionals who are looking to really amp up their
Yep.
productivity and their influence. What was it about that? Because you could have been a great salesperson, a profession, and made a bucket load of money as a sales
hmm
professional. I know you said you'd love to have your own business, but was that the
hmm
catalyst, or was there something else that was sort of the driving force behind setting up the sales dojo?
Mm. Um, I did always know that I wanted to have my own business, specifically for that freedom aspect, right? I knew that I could just have the ultimate freedom that way if I set it up the right way. There's a lot of business owners that have zero freedom in their life.
Mm.
So, you know, you got to be careful with just attribution. But um, I think the biggest thing with the dojo is I started it just to help people around me.
Hmm.
Um, I was looking at, when I started it, I was deep in the management trenches. I was managing a few different sales teams, um, anywhere from 40 to 80 salespeople at a time. And I just realized that even when you recruit really high level salespeople, there's still gaps. There's always some sort of gap in the learning and the knowledge that you personally might feel like they should have learned earlier, but they just never knew about it. And so through that process, I just started creating training systems that I could use across the board for various reps across various different companies. And that's really how the dojo originally got its start. It was just something that I had personally created to help me do my job better and by helping my reps do their jobs better. Um, and it just kind of evolved over time after that until I finally caught up with the realization in my own head that my purpose was not to manage teams. And
Yeah.
that's part of why I don't work with teams now at all.
So then what is your purpose?
My purpose, I'm not 100% sure yet, but as of right now, it is to help sales professionals change their lives just like I did through
Nice.
sales. They're getting good at sales.
Love it. Love it. So let's get into the nitty-gritty then, right? So based on
Yeah.
that, helping salespeople become, let's just say, helping salespeople become exceptional, all right?
Yes.
What are some key overarching principles that you start with? Because there's lots that we can delve into, and hey, we might go deep, and that's okay.
Here for days.
You're working with a sales professional right now that's come to you and said, you know what, Christian, I'm just not having the breakthrough. There's something
Mm.
missing. What's one of the first things that you'd be working with a sales professional on? to help refine their approach?
Mm. Um, I think it depends on how they view sales. And the reason that I say that is because what I've found creates the most success the most quickly is previous successes. If somebody, and it's confidence, right? It's the
Mm,
reason that I say that. When somebody is not confident in what they do, they struggle in more areas than just that area, right? If somebody is maybe not, let's just say they're a sales professional, right? They're maybe
mm,
not making the money that they want to in their job, and obviously they can improve there. But what I've noticed is that usually leaks out in other areas of their life.
mm,
It also affects their relationship. It also affects, their family. It also affects their health. And so the idea is if we can gain a large level of confidence in a salesperson very quickly, then that will also bleed over into other areas of their life, which then is now instead of a negative downward spiral, it's a self-fulfilling cycle that
mm.
pushes them upward. And so what I look for is how can we get the fastest, uh, biggest successes in this person's sales as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And for different people, it's different, right? The How should I say this? The most common answer is the most boring one. The most common answer is the one that nobody really wants to look at because they feel like it's woo-woo or like I know that I used to view some of this stuff as completely out there. Like you have to be so fucking high on shrooms in order to believe this shit. And then now here I am actually teaching it. It's wild. But that's what happens when you learn. Anyway, I'd say the biggest overarching improvement is going to be in the self-identity. It's in facing your fears. It's in removing negative meanings tied to emotions in different situations in your life.
Yeah.
Some somatic work, some consciousness work, etc. That's usually the biggest uplift the most quickly for just about anybody because
Mm.
short version, I won't go too long. I promise. 'Cause I like this stuff. There's a version of you, whoever is listening to this, there's a version of you that used to exist who was completely peaceful, was completely joyful, was completely excited about another day, that got overjoyed at the most simple, small things in life, and that had no fears
Hmm.
of getting hurt, that had no fears of risk, no anxieties, none at all. And then something happened in your life that gave you a bit of anxiety,
Yep.
or you associated it in meanings that created anxiety, et cetera, et cetera. And so that version of you is still there. It's just covered up. And so if we can simply uncover small portions of that person, then their light can start to shine through.
Mm.
And it will be easier and easier to uncover more, which just creates such a contagiously amazing personality and energy when you're talking to other people. It's so amazing to see the transformations when people actually take this seriously because we didn't change anything about their sales process. I didn't show them how to handle objections. I didn't show them how to ask probing and clarifying questions. I didn't teach them to profile anybody. But all of a sudden, now they jump from like a 20% closing rate to a 50% closing rate because they're just being themselves and they gain that confidence because they can just be themselves and they see success being themselves. And so it's just that, again, that's that self-fulfilling cycle. That's the most common thing that I see that if you just do that, you will 100% make more sales. Um, Aside from that, I'd say the more tactical answer is discovery. If you get better at discovery, if you get better at being curious instead of trying to push your own agenda, you'll
Mm.
make more sales. Guaranteed.
Mate, I'm sitting here with a big smile on my face, like as one of my friends used to say, like I've eaten a banana sideways, because there's a lot of sales people out there, and by the way, there's also a lot of sales leaders out there that are looking for the secret. What's
Yeah,
the technique? What's the methodology, right? What's the piece of software that's going to make the difference, right? It's
right.
actually the person staring back at you in the mirror. And it's an age-old principle that if you do more work on yourself, then that will actually start to project out into the world, and you will become a more attractive person.
Yeah.
But it's the confidence, and I often
Yeah.
talk about the confidence competence loop, and I ask
Yes.
salespeople, where does confidence come from? And it's amazing how many of them say, I'm just waiting to feel confident before I call on that senior executive. It's almost like I don't feel worthy yet because I'm here and they're here. What have I got to show? What have
Yeah.
I got to say that that person's going to want to listen to me? I said, you'd be
100%.
amazed. Just make the call, right? Go and put
Yep.
yourself in a position, and this is the big thing as well, disassociate from the pressure of having to get the perfect outcome. Because
Yep.
you've got no control over what your prospect says. You've got no control over what that executive says or does or whatever.
Yeah.
All you've got control over is what you can do at that particular moment. So, I
Exactly.
love that. Absolutely love that.
Huge.
Which is all based on psychology. It's all based on how we see ourselves. Because if you look at,
Yeah.
and you would see this in the work that you do, you see two or three different salespeople, and they've got a disparate level of results.
Yep.
And you look at it on the surface, they're all doing the same thing. They're making their calls, they're doing their planning, they've got their technique. But why is it that one person is here and the other two are here? That
Yep.
gap is what's happening up in their mind.
Yep. 100%.
Man. So with that, because I'm not really big on all the sales techniques and stuff like that. This is what you say.
Sure.
I'm not getting it. I'm
Hmm.
really interested in this psychology stuff. So let's just delve into that.
Let's do
Um,
it.
so from a position of psychology and how people see themselves,
Hmm.
how do people break free of that? Because there might be people listening to this who are behind in their target. They've got their sales manager riding them like a bucking bull.
Mm.
They're running out of time because the end of the quarter is coming up or whatever. When people listen to this, it might be the end of the quarter. Um, what are some techniques to help people unlock some of that hidden potential to get back to that
Mm.
time where they had no fear, they had no anxiety, they weren't holding themselves
Yeah.
back. They were just free of being just the person and just putting themselves out there.
Yeah. Um, the biggest technique that I would say to do that is actually learn about it and fucking implement it. Like we have access to the most vast network of knowledge that has ever existed in the history of the world, the internet. We even
Mm,
have AI that can pull things from the internet for us. There's books that are from people's entire life's work. They've
mm,
studied this shit for 70, 80 years and then put it into a book for you to learn. So
mm,
like number one is just go out there and learn and then actually implement it. Don't let it just be a book on your shelf, but actually implement it. Now, my favorite techniques around all of this probably goes back to Dr. David Hawkins, who published the book called Letting Go.
mm-hmm,
In that book, it has the blueprints for all of this mental stuff in your head that you can work through on your own. A very simple technique that people can use today is allowing the negative emotions to exist, not judging them, not suppressing them, not pushing them down, like not trying to get rid of them, just allow them to exist and allow yourself to be separate from your emotions. That's the key is you are not your emotions,
mm,
right? You are Darren Mitchell, right? I am Christian Jack. I am not anger. I am not sadness. I am not joy. Those are things that I can feel, but
mm,
I am not those things. And so if somebody maybe is stuck in a place of shame, right? They're not feeling like they're performing at the level that they think that they could be. Or maybe they're guilty because they're not working as hard as they know that they could.
mm,
Or maybe they're just frustrated because they're not getting the results that they want to be getting. Allow that emotion to exist and look at it as if you're I don't know if you've seen like Doctor Strange or the Avengers, where there's like this ultimate monk lady and she kicks the soul out of a human. and they're looking at their body from outside, like they're just floating outside.
Yep.
That's what you have to do to your emotions, is just look at them, allow them to exist, feel them, and then you can decide what to do with them.
Mm.
But if you are so connected to your emotions, then it's like trying to pull a weed out of a garden that has all these roots that are just clinging to everything around it.
Yeah.
And you're probably just going to snap the top off, but the roots are still going to be there.
Mm.
So instead, you have to separate yourself from the emotions, just look at them, and then you can decide what to do with them. And usually it's pretty simple, right? Like if somebody is really, let's just say ashamed of their results. They're not where they want to be, and they just feel like they are their results. Separate yourself from the shame and then look at it. Like, what are you actually ashamed of?
Mm.
And usually, shame is just rooted in a bit of anger or a bit of fear and just a bit of tying your identity to your results.
Yeah.
And so you can realize in that moment that, I am not my results. Just as I'm not my emotions, I'm not my results. And I
Mhm.
think that's something, maybe I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this, Darren. Having been in this space for a lot longer than I have, I'm sure. Um, Sorry, no dig there. But I think that one of the most amazing things about sales, but also one of the most terrible things about sales, is that you are rewarded for the deals that you close.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what that ends up doing is, yes, it incentivizes you to close more deals. But then also, I can't tell you how many sales reps I've worked with and struggled with this myself for so long that their identity is so tied to their
That's it.
results. If they have a great month, they feel on top of the world. If they have a shit month, then they feel like shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you seen that?
All the time. In fact, I used to run sales teams in big corporates here in Australia, and we would
Yeah.
have. There was one particular example where at the end of one financial year, I had the number one salesperson in the company. So a
Mm.
lot of organizations have like President's Club, or
Yeah.
we call it number
Yeah.
one club. And the following year, they were about 2 weeks away from performance management because their numbers had absolutely tanked.
Mm.
And so when people looked at that individual, they thought, how can you go from hero to now zero? And there was lots of circumstances with that, but
Of
it
course.
wasn't just the person looking at that and maybe feeling shame or frustration or anger. It was
Yeah.
how everybody else looked at them as well. And I think
Mm.
from an identity point of view, a lot of people think, there she, he or she, the cat.
Yeah. Just jumps
Don't,
up.
don't tell me the name's Dojo.
No, it's not.
Um, but a lot of other people will be looking at that particular salesperson saying, "What is wrong with them?" Right?
Mm.
Almost saying you are your results. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of people within organizations feel their worth as the company sees them is directly
Hmm.
proportionate to the results they're delivering. Hence, they have a lot of external pressure, but also a lot of
Yeah.
internal pressure placed upon them. So I
Yeah.
love the concept, excuse me, that you talk about in terms of disassociating from the emotion, but also disassociating from your results. Because let's face it,
Yeah.
sales, particularly
Yeah.
in corporate sales, you're only as good as your next deal, right? You
For
can't you
sure.
can't live on the glory of what you did last week, last month, last quarter, last year.
Yeah.
You've got to look forward. So I
Yeah.
love this thing in terms of do more work on yourself than you do on your craft of selling, and you'll actually be really successful because when you work on the
Yes.
craft of selling, you've already got that really solid foundation of you know who you are.
Yeah.
You know what you stand for. And when I speak with sales leaders and sales teams, I spend a lot of time on mindset, on confidence, on getting them
Hmm.
to really understand why do you do what you do? Why did you choose this profession? And why did you choose this company? So
Yeah.
digging into what motivates them to do what they do on a daily basis. Because we know you're going to have peaks,
Yeah.
you're going to have troughs, right? It's the law of
Yeah.
polarity.
Yeah.
So I love this. You've got to work hard on yourself.
You do. You do. And what's really interesting is whenever whenever I was first starting sales, I completely thought all of this was utter bullshit. Like just completely stupid. Um, And I came from a very competitive background. Like I was competing in competitions for music, and also I was a swimmer. I went to the Olympic Training Center when I was 16. I was competing almost every day of my life in multiple ways.
Yeah.
And even still, like I didn't realize this. And I think there's a lot of people out there, maybe you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, whatever. Like, just tell me what to say and like, just give me the script or whatever. But whenever I look at and study from people who have been in sales for a really long time, who have succeeded at a really high level, like the real ones that actually study sales, that aren't just like business consultants that also teach sales.
Mm.
People like yourself, or like I think of, Michael Oliver, or, people who have been around for a while that really know their stuff. Almost every single one of them across the board always says work on yourself first. There might be something there.
You reckon?
Just maybe. Maybe.
Well, I've been heavily for a number of years now into what Jim Rohn stands for, what he talks
Yes.
about. I do a lot of leadership, so I'm very much a fan
Fantastic.
of John Maxwell, Bob
Yes.
Proctor, all the guys that all have very similar approaches, and that is it's up here, right?
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, and it sounds cliched, but whether you're in real estate, whether you're in insurance, whether you're in business, SaaS, business to business,
Yeah.
whatever they're selling, people do business with people.
Yes.
And if you don't resonate with your prospect, you ain't going to do a sale.
Yeah.
You could have the best sales process and you might have the best product in the marketplace.
Yeah.
But if you cannot build a relationship with that particular person and identify a problem and help them solve that problem, should they wish to solve that problem, you're
Yeah.
not going to be successful. All right.
Yeah.
So it's not about, and with respect to all the sales gurus out there that talk about all the techniques, it's not about the sales process and it ain't about the
Yeah.
technique. It's all about the psychology and how you actually influence that person who wants to buy. Because it's a
Yeah.
it's a purchasing decision that they want
Right.
to make, not being sold to.
Yeah. For sure.
So with that, you talk a lot about I guess creating impressions and building that relationship and a lot of it's body language and things like that. What are
Hmm.
some key, I guess, some key principles? Because I don't want to delve into the sales process because we can talk about overcoming objections and all that sort of stuff, but that's maybe for another day. But I just wanted to touch on the psychology of this and
Yeah.
what are some things that salespeople can really hone in on, given that they're going to work on themselves
Hmm.
to create the very best possible impression upon the people they're interacting with, to give
Mm.
that person the opportunity to maybe make an educated purchasing decision, or at least take a step forward.
Mm. Yeah. Um, I'm going to reference one of my personal coaches here. His name is Chase Hughes, and I think one of the more he has one of the better brains in the world when it comes to behavior and neuroscience, but then also systematizing it. I don't think I've ever met somebody better than him at it. He is the world's leading behavior expert.
Hmm.
But he also, because of that, he also knows quite a bit about sales. So there's a model that he talks about. It's called the FATE model. It's
Fate.
FATE. Yeah, it's an acronym. It stands for focus, authority, tribe, and emotions.
Okay.
If you are able to check off those four things, you will be able to make whatever kind of impression that you would like. And this can be a good one, this can be a bad one, whatever. So the idea is let's level up um, these four things inside of a conversation. So, as an example, focus. You've probably been in some sort of sales conversation before where somebody wasn't focused. Like, how well is that going to go? Maybe they're driving their car, they're walking their dog, whatever. I get that life happens, but also at the same time, there's definitely a huge correlation between a higher level of focus equals a more productive conversation.
Hmm.
Okay. The second one then is authority. This one people can get a little bit wrong. The way Chase talks about it's very much so a science. There's this thing called white coat theory. And it's the idea that when you go to a doctor's office, what is the doctor usually wearing? They're wearing a white coat, right? And what's really interesting is there's been a ton of studies done, um, with in various ways where they'll just have somebody dressed normally giving people instructions and they'll achieve a certain result. But then they'll also do it again with that person on a different test group wearing a white coat. And immediately they get better results, more compliance, more permission to do things, etc. And so it's really interesting. There is some level of people do respond to authority, and it's built into us in our ancestral genes, in our DNA, right? When you're a caveman version of Christian, right? It's very important to obey authority because if you don't, it means you're probably going to get cast out of the tribe. And if you're cast out of the tribe, you got to hunt on your own, you got to feed on your own, like everything you have to do on your own, which means you're probably going to die,
Mm.
right? So authority, if you can level up somebody's sense of your authority, then that's probably going to be helpful in the conversation again. Um, it levels up your ability to influence. That's kind of the point of the fate model. The next one then is tribe. Tribe is something that some people think they're a lone wolf. Some people think that they are, they pride themselves on being different from other people and they don't need people around them.
Yeah.
But I promise you, deep inside of your mammalian brain, back to caveman version of you, right? Tribe is safety, tribe is security. And so if you can level up somebody's sense of tribe, aligned with the quote unquote decision that you like want them to make per se. Again, this is like true deep level influence.
Mm.
Sales I truly believe is about just facilitating a good conversation and good decisions that align with what somebody wants. So I'm
Yeah.
not looking to make them make a decision that they don't want to make. Um, so you have to kind of walk the line when using this sort of stuff. But tribe is just the sense of you're part of a community, right? If, for example, I go back to one of my recent talks from stage, I was selling at an event and there were 2,500, 3,000 people there. It was a pretty decent sized event. Um, and for the close, something that I see a lot of people do wrong is they'll ask people to stand up if they're ready to move forward and go to the back. Meanwhile, everybody else around them is sitting down.
Yeah.
Interesting, right? So what if instead, you know, I tried, everybody stand up. Everybody in the room stood up. I want you to raise your hand and give me a big old whoop and holler if you felt like this session was valuable for you. Everybody, hand in the air, whoop and holler. It's like fantastic. If you would like more value like this, and you'd like to actually step forward to get that, go ahead and head to the back. The rest of you guys sit
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
And so now everybody has already said, I'm part of this tribe.
Yeah.
Everybody's standing up. So now we ended up closing, I think it was 60% of the room on that. Like
Nice.
it's insane. Like most people will close 5% of the room,
Mm.
maybe 10% of the room. 30 is a good result. 60 is ridiculous. And so if you can level up the sense of tribe for people, they will be more likely to make decisions. And it can be really easy, as simple as saying, the top Fortune 500 companies in the world right now are all focused on AI and how to
Mm.
implement it in a way where blah, 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 blah. Like that, it can be as simple as saying something like that, so that somebody doesn't feel like they're, not part of that group, if you will. So a little bit different. Anyway, the last one then is emotions. If you're in sales, you probably heard that people make decisions with emotions and then they justify it with logic. It is true. So if you can level up the amount of or in the intensity of emotions associated with whatever it is that you're talking about, then you're probably also going to have a better result. You're going to increase the level of influence that you can have on this person. So steal
Love
that
it.
from Chase Hughes. Again, he's a goat.
I love that. Because yes, and I think who was it? JP Morgan was quoted as saying people do things for two reasons and two reasons only, the real reason and the right reasons. The
Yep.
logic and political, cultural and emotional brain, and about 70/30 or maybe even 80/20 depending on who you
Yeah.
listen to. But it's so important because nobody's going to make decisions, even though they say, well, I'm a very logical person, Christian. Oh, give me the facts, give me the figures. Now, unless you're unless you're deep into procurement and all you do is make decisions based on numbers on a spreadsheet, I
Yeah,
guarantee there's still a level of emotion that's attached to that. Um,
100%.
I wanted to touch on one thing that you did say in relation to the authority. So I love that model, the focus, authority, tribe, and emotions. For a sales professional who is maybe hasn't yet established themselves,
Yeah.
my take on this is they've got to establish a level of authority so they're worthy of being listened to.
Mm,
But how do you teach somebody to create that level of authority? Is it something that they do individually, or can they leverage the authority of somebody else that can
mm.
elevate that person in the eyes of their prospective customer?
I don't think it's a either or conversation. It's a both and for sure. You can 100% do both. Leverage authority through people that you have around you and various connections, etc. I think that's 100% massively helpful. But then you can also learn techniques that increase your authority. Things like, for example, if you want to think of authority, what is one common theme of everybody who has true authority in their life? It's comfort.
Mm,
It is composure, even if I can say it that way. Let's talk. Let's talk dogs. Do you have a dog, Darren?
I do.
Okay, what kind of dog do you have?
I've got a border collie.
Border collie. Okay, so
Yeah.
kind of mid-sized dog, right?
Yeah.
Um, if you put your border collie, what's your border collie's name?
Her name is Millie.
Millie. If you put Millie next to a Chihuahua, what are the differences in how they act?
Well, by experience,
Yeah.
the little Chihuahua is going to try to make itself bigger, and
Uh-huh.
Millie doesn't like small dogs, so she's probably gonna separate herself from
Yeah.
it.
So Millie probably moves a little bit more slowly, barks less, and then the
Yes.
Chihuahua is all jittery, trying to like run and charge, and then barking like crazy, right?
Yeah.
Snarling. So it's the same exact thing. The higher level of authority you have, the slower you move, the more
Mm,
open your body language is. And like there's lots of little things that we can go on through here. There's something like 145 categorized behaviors that you can exhibit to either increase or decrease your level of authority with somebody else and composure. Um, but if you just want to take this simplest one, it's move like you're underwater.
yeah.
If you simply everything that you do, talking, moving, blinking, everything like you're underwater at that speed, you will immediately have more authority than you did before. There is such a thing as moving too slowly because then you just
Mm.
bore everybody. But
Like a
there's a
sloth.
nice, middle ground where, I think of like a Great Dane or there's a little mosquito right here. Um, like I think of like a Great Dane or a Mastiff as opposed to a Chihuahua. Like it's very clear to see the difference. Great Dane does not give a care in the world. It will just
Yeah.
flop over, wide open body, show its entire belly because it doesn't care. It feels completely safe because it knows that it has authority. And so it's almost like in order to get authority, you have to believe that you already have it. Kind of like confidence. In order to get confidence, you have to be confident. It's really interesting, but it's the same thing with authority. So you can manufacture it, and the more that you do it, the more it becomes a habit. Um, but then there's also, of course, the internal side of things. Don't neglect that. And then you
Yeah.
can, of course, lean on the authority of others. If you combine all three of those,
Yeah.
like, wow, that's great. You can sense when somebody has a high level of authority just looking at them from across the room.
Yeah. And that person never has to say their title, their
Yeah,
background, their qualifications. You just know it because it comes through every fiber of
yeah,
their being, and they're really present. They're
yes,
very connected, and I
yeah,
think that's also you said because you said something before, and as you were talking, I'm thinking, yeah, this is emotional intelligence 101. It's
yeah,
when you're feeling an emotion, but you're being able to separate from the emotion, not being controlled by the emotion, not reacting to it, but choosing your response. So it's the regulation of that. So of
Yes.
course you might have a situation where you're running into about to do a big pitch, right? And you may be shitting yourself. That's okay. That's a natural thing. But to get yourself centered and think about, okay, I'm here to be of service. I've got to disassociate from the pressure of getting the perfect outcome. I'm going to give this organization or this person an opportunity to make a purchasing decision, but I can't control what they do. I have
Yeah.
to disassociate from that. All I can do is give them the opportunity. Should they wish to do that, then I'm there to serve them. If not, what have I done? At least I might have planted a seed for them to now think about me as the possible solution to their problem moving forward.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
So as we bring this into a close, the I've got to talk to you about AI because every person I'm talking about has AI in there, either in their sales
Yeah.
process or etc. How do you see in the work that you're doing, how do you see AI playing a part, given that we've talked a lot about psychology and that's really important, that will continue. How
Yeah.
do you see AI supplementing what a sales professional can do and
Mm.
almost supercharging their
Yes.
ability to be more influential?
Fantastic question. I'd say the biggest way that I'm seeing it is in two different ways. Number one is reviewing their calls. So you have to do a bit of training with the AI. I have fed AI thousands of pages of material at this point in order to train it properly. Uh, but if you train it properly, then it can be a massive tool to help you review your sales calls and help you see where maybe you missed things, or maybe you miscommunicated, or maybe you should have just done something slightly differently. And then that way you don't actually have to watch all of your calls back like maybe you used to. Still watch some of them. You're still going to see some things that
Mm,
you should do better for sure. Um, but you can put the majority of things through the AI so that it can filter through all of the data and also help you find trends. Because
mm,
that's what I'm looking for as a coach. I don't want to know where you messed up once. I want to
yeah,
know where you messed up 10 times
yeah,
with the same thing. So AI analyzing calls, that's number one. Number two is then if you learn about all of this behavioral science and neuroscience and different things where you analyze word choices that people use to identify, is this somebody who wants to stand out from the crowd as a top 1%, or is this somebody who wants to fit in with the top 1%, right? Slightly different.
yeah,
Is this somebody who wants to, go big or go home, rip the band-aid off, right? Hit a home run first time around, do it right the first time so they don't have to do it again? Or are they the type of person who would rather start small, right? Grow over time, under promise, and then slightly increase over time, right? If you learn all about that stuff and then you pop it into an AI model, kind of like we do at the dojo, then you can use it to analyze your prospects as well so that you can see, who is this person? What do they really
mm,
want? They may even say that they want something else, but who are they really?
yeah,
And you can do this from emails that they send before the call. You can do this from their social media profiles beforehand. You can do it from, your first disco call with them. Maybe you just
mm,
have a short 5-minute conversation with them before you do a 30, 45-minute demo call or something, right?
yeah,
You can analyze that 5-minute call to figure out what it is that they really want. So if you do those two things, like massively supercharged, but the key is to always remember that it's all about the connection first, like
yeah.
100%. I know a lot of people who are afraid that AI is going to replace salespeople, and it will, but only the shit ones.
That's
Only
right.
the mediocre and crappy ones, not the good ones. So,
Totally,
you
totally.
know,
Because at the end of the day, mate, people are just going to, and I, even my own experience, I detest trying to get to organizations where they force you into the bot, into the
yeah,
frequently asked questions, into the self-service. I just want to talk to a human because
exactly.
human
I called
connection is
my
going to be the
internet
difference.
provider the other day. It took me like an hour to get to a real person.
It's
And
nuts.
then it was like a 5-minute conversation.
It's
100%
just
agree.
nuts. So use AI as an augmentation to what you're doing but here's the other thing I say is don't give over to it either. So you
Mm,
have to interrogate it, right?
yeah,
So it's use it as a second use it as an agent. Use it as a
yeah.
as a resource within the team, but don't
Exactly.
take what it says as
Not a
gospel.
crutch. Ah,
Yes, absolutely. So, mate, hey, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I greatly appreciate you on a Friday jumping on. For people who wanted to know more about you and also connect with you, Christian, where's the best place for them to do
well,
that?
I've got a very special place for them. That'll
A
be
special place.
my my website and then / exceptional. So it's www.thesalesdojo.co/exceptional. And
Wow,
on that page, we're going to have just a couple of little goodies for people referencing some of the things that we talked about today.
awesome.
Some free stuff. If you want to pay me some money, then you're welcome to. If you'd like to pay me a lot of money, then you're welcome to as well. But of course, there'll be some free things on there as well. But hopefully those things can just help you do a little better at sales and make some more money.
Love it. Awesome, mate. I'll put that in the show notes. And may I thank you for being a great guest on the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. It's been a phenomenal conversation, and this is the first time we've met, but there's a connection there, and I wish you all the best as you continue to build out world domination and with the
I
Sales
appreciate
Dojo.
it, Darren. You've been exceptional yourself.
Thank you, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your Friday.
You as well, your Saturday. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.